Welcome to our channel. We're so glad you're here to join us on this incredible journey. In today's video, we have an unforgettable story to share with you, one that will keep you on the edge of your seat. But before we dive in, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss the next special story we'll be sharing tomorrow. We're bringing you more tales of courage, discipline, and unexpected moments, and we can't wait for you to experience it all with us. What does it take for a royal guard to break his silence? You'll find out. Malcolm Harris, a 42-year-old activist from London, pushed his way through the crowd at Buckingham Palace, his weathered face set with a hard, determined look. The air was thick with tension, and the usual excitement of tourists snapping photos seemed to have been replaced by something darker, something more volatile. Malcolm's eyes narrowed as he glared at the royal guard standing perfectly still, his expression one of disdain. "Look at them!" He muttered loudly enough for those around him to hear. Standing there like nothing's wrong, guarding the very institutions that keep us all in check. His words cut through the quiet hum of the crowd, attracting attention. The flagpole he carried was permitted for protests in designated areas, but the way his fingers gripped it tightly suggested his message went far beyond a simple display. His voice, tinged with bitterness, filled the air. "Do you even think for yourself, mate? Or do they program that out of you when they put on that ridiculous hat?" 20 feet away, Guard Alexander Thompson stood immobile, his back straight, his eyes forward. 2 tours in Afghanistan had taught him to sense danger without giving any sign of awareness. He cataloged the situation in his mind. Malcolm's clenched knuckles around the flagpole, his increasingly agitated movements, and the hostile energy radiating from him. Yet, Thompson's expression remained unchanged. His focus never wavered. This was his duty, to stand, to observe, and to maintain discipline, no matter the provocation. Malcolm took a step closer, emboldened by the silence of the guard. "I pay your salary, don't I?" he challenged. "My taxes, my money. Doesn't that make me your boss?" His voice rose, carrying a sense of entitlement, as if his presence alone should force a reaction. As he edged closer, the crowd fell quiet, sensing the tension building. The guard's stillness seemed to mock him, fueling Malcolm's anger. He moved closer, his breath tinged with the smell of coffee and cigarettes. "What would happen if I just—" he began, stopping just short of touching the guard's uniform. His words hung in the air, and for a brief moment it seemed as though everything would snap. But Thompson remained unwavering, his gaze fixed straight ahead, his discipline as unyielding as the stone beneath his boots. The guard's calm was more than just physical stillness. It was the practiced strength of a man who had faced far more dangerous situations and whose resolve was forged through experience. The protesters' words fell away, drowned out by the unspoken strength of the guard's presence. Guard Alexander Thompson stood perfectly still, every inch of his posture as disciplined as the uniform he wore. Though Malcolm Harris continued his verbal assault, Thompson's expression remained unwavering. He was a man of training, a man who had seen much more than just protests and insults. 2 tours in Afghanistan had shaped his ability to assess threats, to read situations without letting a single flicker of emotion escape. This was nothing compared to the life or death situations he'd faced on the battlefield. Yet, as Malcolm's words grew more aggressive, Thompson's military instincts kicked in, quietly cataloging every movement. Malcolm's taunts grew louder, more pointed. "You think you're better than me, don't you?" His voice was laced with disdain, directed at a man who stood in front of him like a statue, unmoving, unflinching. "You're just a pawn in this rigged system, aren't you?" The crowd around them started to shift uncomfortably, drawn into the confrontation. Parents pulled their children closer, sensing the tension building. Even the elderly man with a veteran's pin on his lapel stiffened, unconsciously straightening his posture in solidarity with the guard. It wasn't just the words. They could feel it in the air, a volatile charge hanging heavy, ready to explode. Thompson's eyes remained locked on the horizon. His stance didn't waver, his breathing steady and controlled. Every word from Malcolm was like a hammer hitting steel. But Thompson didn't flinch. To an outsider, it might have seemed like nothing more than a silent standoff, but to those who knew what to look for, There was something deeper happening. The guard's discipline wasn't just about the stillness of his body, it was about the control of his mind. He had been trained to stay calm under pressure, to rise above threats both physical and verbal. Yet Malcolm was relentless. He stepped closer, his anger mounting as the silence between them stretched on. You don't even have the guts to speak for yourself, do you? Just stand there while everything falls apart around you. His flagpole was now inches from Thompson's chest. The crowd held its breath, unsure of what would come next. In that moment, Thompson's senses went into overdrive. Every detail was registered: the flagpole's position, the tilt of Malcolm's weight, the subtle shift in his eyes. Thompson's military training had prepared him for this. He knew what came next. But his exterior remained a mask of professionalism, unshaken, unmovable. This wasn't just a protest. This was a test of control, of patience, and of resolve. And Guard Thompson was ready to pass it, no matter what. As Malcolm Harris stood just inches from Guard Alexander Thompson, the tension between them was almost tangible. The air around Buckingham Palace felt thick, like a storm ready to break. Malcolm's face was flushed with anger, his voice now a sharp, biting force, each word aimed to provoke. "You don't get it, do you?" He spat, waving the flagpole in front of the guard's chest. "You stand there, silent and stiff, like you're protecting something worth protecting. But all you're doing is supporting a system that's broken." Thompson, unmoving as ever, felt the weight of every word. He had been trained for moments like this. His years in the military had prepared him for threats both physical and psychological. But even with all that training, the words still cut and the tension simmered under the surface. Still, he remained stoic. His eyes stayed focused ahead, his posture unyielding. It was a test of his discipline, and he wasn't about to fail it. Around them, the crowd began to shrink back, their excitement shifting from curiosity to discomfort. Some tourists, realizing the situation was escalating, lowered their phones. Parents whispered urgently to their children, guiding them away from the confrontation. And yet, there were others, like the elderly man with the veteran's pin, who stood rooted in place, watching the drama unfold with quiet concern. Malcolm, sensing the unease in the crowd, only grew bolder. He took a step forward, his breath heavy with the sharp scent of coffee and cigarettes. "I'm not just talking to you, you know?" he continued, now addressing the onlookers. "I'm talking about all of you. You're all complicit. This guard, this man, he represents everything that's wrong with this country." His words dripped with disdain as he jabbed the flagpole toward Thompson's chest once more, just narrowly missing him. But it was the subtle shift in Thompson's body language that told the true story. He wasn't just standing still anymore. His military instincts were on high alert. The way Malcolm's weight shifted, the way the flagpole angled just slightly in his grip, the rising volume of his voice. Every signal was a clear indication that this wasn't just a protest anymore. It was something more dangerous. Thompson's eyes flicked briefly to the palace security officers, who were now on edge, their hands hovering near their radios. Everyone sensed it. Something was about to happen. The stillness between them wasn't just a standoff. It was a countdown. Malcolm's voice cracked with frustration. "What are you going to do, huh? Just stand there and take it? Or are you going to respond like a human being?" Thompson didn't move. He simply waited. The tension between Malcolm Harris and Guard Alexander Thompson reached its breaking point in an instant. Every moment up until now had been a slow build, a war of words and wills. But as Malcolm took one more step forward, his anger boiling over, the game changed. He raised the flagpole again, this time with a deliberate intent, as if to challenge Thompson's restraint. The crowd had gone silent, holding their breath, waiting for something, anything, to happen. Malcolm's eyes burned with frustration, and his voice, hoarse from shouting, cut through the still air. "I'm not backing down. You stand there like a statue, but this isn't just about you anymore. It's about all the people you're protecting. Those in power, the ones who sit in their palaces and do nothing while people like me struggle." His grip tightened on the flagpole, the wood creaking under his fingers. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, some stepping back, others inching forward, caught between curiosity and concern. Thompson, for all his training and discipline, could feel the change in the atmosphere. The words from Malcolm, now more like a personal attack than a protest, had crossed a line, but his training had taught him how to respond to threats, how to stay calm even when the world around him seemed to be unraveling. His military experience had taught him that the moment the flagpole moved in a certain way, the moment Malcolm's weight shifted forward, the confrontation had become physical, not just verbal. Malcolm's flagpole swung in the air with a sudden, sharp motion aimed directly at Thompson's head. But what happened next was almost too quick to process. Guard Thompson's rifle snapped up, the polished wood of the flagpole meeting the metal of the rifle with a loud crack. The sound echoed across the palace grounds. The flagpole was deflected with precision, and the force of the blow sent Malcolm stumbling backward. In the blink of an eye, Thompson moved. His free hand shot out, grabbing Malcolm's attacking arm, twisting it with the efficiency of someone who had done this countless times before. There was no hesitation, no anger in his movements, just the fluid, practiced skill of a man trained to neutralize a threat. With a sharp pivot, Thompson used Malcolm's momentum against him, sending the protester crashing to the ground in a controlled fall. The flagpole clattered to the stones beside him. Malcolm left gasping for breath, his eyes wide with shock. The crowd was eerily silent, the whole scene unfolding like a slow-motion reel. For a moment, no one knew what to say. Malcolm lay on his back, the wind knocked out of him, staring up at the sky as if the world had just shifted beneath his feet. Thompson stood over him, his expression as calm and impassive as ever. "Stay down, sir," he said, his voice steady and controlled. It was the first time he had spoken, and his words carried the weight of duty, not victory. As security personnel moved in, the tension in the air slowly dissipated. Malcolm was arrested for assault, still dazed from the swift takedown. The moment had ended, but the lesson of discipline and restraint lingered, a stark reminder of the strength that lies in calm. As the security officers stepped in to arrest Malcolm Harris, the shock of the takedown still hung in the air. He lay there, stunned and gasping for breath, his mind scrambling to catch up with the reality of what had just happened. The flagpole, now discarded at his side, seemed almost absurd. Once a symbol of protest, now just a useless object on the stone floor. The onlookers, who had once been excited to witness the ceremony, now stood in a hushed silence. Some had already begun to move away, their faces a mixture of awe and disbelief, while others lingered, unable to tear their eyes away from the scene. Guard Alexander Thompson stood over Malcolm, his posture as rigid and composed as it had been when the protest first began. His face revealed nothing. There was no satisfaction in his expression, no triumph over the man who had tried to break his discipline. Thompson had simply done his duty, neutralizing the threat in a way that was swift, efficient, and necessary. He had not let the situation escalate any further. The police officers, who had been standing by on the perimeter, quickly moved to secure the scene. One helped Malcolm to his feet, while the other retrieved the flagpole as evidence. The once heated confrontation had come to an end, and now it was a matter of procedure. Malcolm, still reeling from the fall, looked up at Thompson, his eyes wide with confusion. "How did you move so fast?" he asked, the question almost slipping from his mouth in disbelief. Thompson didn't answer. He simply resumed his position, turning his eyes back to the horizon. The guard's response, or lack of one, spoke volumes. It was a reminder that his role wasn't to engage in arguments or exchanges. His duty was to stand watch, to protect, and to respond with precision when necessary. Nothing more, nothing less. As Malcolm was led away by the officers, he found himself reflecting on what had just transpired. In the midst of his frustration, he had assumed that his anger would make a difference, that he could provoke a reaction. But what he hadn't expected was Thompson's calm, unwavering professionalism. The guard had done his job, not out of anger or resentment, but out of a deep commitment to his duty. And in that moment, Malcolm realized that it wasn't the system he was fighting against. It was his own inability to understand the discipline that Thompson had shown. The crowd slowly began to disperse, their initial curiosity replaced by a newfound respect for the man they had come to see as nothing more than a statue. As a mother knelt beside her child, explaining the importance of the guard's role, it was clear that something had changed. The protesters' attempt to disrupt the ceremony had failed, but in its place, a deeper understanding had been forged. one that would stay with the witnesses long after the day was over. Thompson's duty wasn't just to stand still. It was to embody the strength that comes with unwavering discipline and self-control. And in doing so, he had taught everyone watching a powerful lesson. We'd love to hear what you think about today's story. What's your take on the confrontation between Malcolm and Guard Thompson? Do you believe that peaceful protest and personal discipline can coexist? Or do you think there's a clear line where one should take precedence over the other? Was Thompson's response justified, or did Malcolm have a right to challenge the Guard and the system he represented? In the end, this was more than just a simple protest. It was a test of strength, resolve, and understanding. It made us reflect on how we view authority, discipline, and the power of silence in the face of aggression. Do you think Thompson's calm response was a sign of weakness or the ultimate show of strength? We're really curious to know where you stand on this issue. Leave us a comment below, sharing your thoughts, whether you agree with the protesters' point of view or you admire the Guard's unwavering discipline. Your perspective matters, and we want to hear from you. And while you're here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join us for more powerful stories just like this one, coming every day. Your comments and feedback help us bring you the content you care about most.